Well, I think we can get things started. To start off, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Genevieve Wagner, and I'm the Public Programs Assistant at MAS. We are really excited to kick off Jane's Walk 2022 with this info session. So just some housekeeping things. This session is being recorded, and a recording will be available on our website and via email after the session. If you're comfortable with keeping your camera on, we welcome that. And everyone is muted currently, but later on we'll transition into some breakout rooms so you can turn on your microphone and speak later on. How this session is going to work is we'll do an intro session and then we'll move into the breakout rooms. If you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to message one of the MAS staff members. They have MAS next to their name. And yeah, we're really excited to engage everyone through this session. Before I start with the info portion, I'd love if everyone who's helping out from MAS or from the Jane's Walk Steering Committee in Toronto can unmute and introduce themselves, starting with the MAS team members.
Hey everyone, this is Spencer Williams. Excited to have you all here today. Really excited for Jane's Walk this year. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a question on the chat.
Hi everyone, I'm Dee. I'm Interim Special Projects Director at Municipal Art Society. Thrilled to see everyone. It's a beautiful day in New York and I'm just itching to get out there and explore. So this will be a great source of inspiration today.
Hi, and I'm Elizabeth Goldstein. I'm the president of MAS and really excited to kick off what we hope will at least be a partially in-person Jane's Walk for the first time in 2 years. Yay!
And I'm Eliza Jacobson, and I am interning with MAS this semester. I'm really excited to be here and to get to see Jane's Walk in person. So welcome everyone.
And I think if that's it from MAS, I'll start with the Jane's Walk Steering Committee. My name is Wesley Reibling. I am co-chair of the Jane's Walk Volunteer Steering Committee. I'm located here in Toronto, Canada, and I'm going to pass it on to my other co-chair, Celia.
Hi, sorry. I think I just got kicked out and rejoined the call because my internet is not very good. But yes, I'm the other co-chair of Jane's Walk, and I'm dialing in from Vienna, Austria. I'm really happy to be here.
Hi everyone, my name's Geraldine. I'm calling in from Toronto in Canada, also with the Jane's Walk Steering Committee. Super excited to join you today. Hand over to Cecilia.
Thanks, G. Hi, everybody. I'm Cecilia. I'm also part of the Jane's Walk Steering Committee, but I'm located in Berlin, Germany. Great turnout today. Gia?
Yes, thanks, Cecilia. Hi, everyone. I'm Gia. I'm also part of the Jane's Walk Steering Committee, calling in from Toronto today. Nice to be here.
And I think Adam's on the call also.
I'm Adam Bloom. I'm calling in from Toronto, and I am a wheelchair user, and I do can't say which city. I've been to New York. I can say both of our cities have problems with too many inaccessible historical buildings, but I do love the art and culture in both places, and the thought.
Awesome. Thank you everyone else for introducing themselves. We have another intro question. This one is a fun little question just about New York. So feel free to enter your answers in the chat and I will read out some answers. So feel free to share your favorite building in New York City. Nice. We've gotten a lot of Chrysler buildings and Grand Central. Good ones. Empire State Building, classic. Love it. Oh, Gold Hall designed by Stanford White. Oh, really cool. On the Brooklyn Community College campus. Cool.
I
Brooklyn
goofed. It's
Museum.
the Bronx Community College.
the
I
Bronx.
typed too quickly. It's Bronx. It's so great.
That's wonderful. Awesome. Yeah, Brooklyn Museum, Parade Building. Cool. Thank you everyone for sharing. Love looking through these answers, and a great way just to brainstorm about places you could lead your walkabout, and also a fun way to get excited about how this year's Jane's Walk is going to be partially in person. So excited to see these spaces virtually maybe, but also in person. Wonderful. Yes, parks also count. Thank you, Elizabeth. Agreed. Love that. All right. Well, thank you everyone for sharing your answers. Feel free to keep sharing answers if you haven't yet. And we're going to transition into the info session portion of this program. So I'm going to share my screen. Alrighty. So there might be some folks who are joining us today that are a bit unfamiliar with MAS and our work. So a little bit of context, MAS has been advocating for a more livable city since 1893. And we've been advocating for issues related to the built environment, including preservation, planning, and public art. So fostering community engagement is a core component of the work that MAS does, which is why Jane's Walk is such an exciting program that we are engaged in every year. Next, I'd like to have some members of the Jane's Walk Steering Committee share some information about the history of Jane's Walk and the work that they do on their team.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll just quickly run through a bit about Jane's Walk, because it looked like even from the poll, a few people are pretty brand new and unfamiliar with it. So if you can go to the next slide, we have a bit of an overview statement here. I'll just read it out loud. Jane's Walk is a movement of free, community-led walking tours inspired by Jane Jacobs. Jane's Walks encourage people to share stories about their neighborhoods, discover unseen aspects of their communities, and use walking as a way to connect with their neighbors. So there are obviously many components integrated into these two sentences here, but some of the key things are, community-led. These are walks that are led by the community. They're for the community. Jane's Walk is entirely volunteer run. So the whole premise of it is everybody is an expert in their own community. Everybody has a story to share. And because of that, anybody, literally anybody, can lead a walk. And it's not just about, walking and sharing these stories. It's also about connecting with each other, getting to know your neighborhood, and getting to know your neighbors as well. And then the next slide, we want to say as well that this is, of course, it was created in honor of Jane Jacobs, who we will describe in a little bit more detail. But it was founded in 2006 in commemoration of Jane Jacobs. But we also want to say that, we encourage critical dialogue and discussion and debate with a lot of her teachings. It's not just about the, prescribing her teachings. It's about, it was created in honor of her, but it's also about kind of critically engaging with her too. And that first year in 2006, it started just in Toronto, and there were only 27 walks. And I'm just going to pass it to Wes now so you can get an idea of how far Jane's Walk has spread since 2006.
So yeah, thank you. Next slide, please. So just the last time we polled, which tends to be a few years ago, back in 2017, there was over 1,695 walks in over 225 cities, 37 countries across 6 continents. So since 2006, Jane's Walk's inception, Jane's Walk inception, tens of thousands of walks have happened around the world. And as we mentioned, Jane's Walk is really inspired by Jane Jacobs' principles. They've been a place for civic conversation, urban issues, a love for community, and for neighborhood pride. I do want to use a Jane Jacobs quote that kind of inspires me every year. That's from Downtown is the People. It offered an early view idea of city life, what made it worthwhile for both passerbyers and local residents. So Jane argued that the magnetism of cities was what made people want to come out to the city and linger there. She told readers, you've got to get out and walk. So that's my kind of rah to you, is get out and walk this year, or get out and move and see the city, and hopefully take part in some virtual and some in-person walks. Next slide. And then just lastly, just to kind of reiterate what Jane's Walks are, they connect people to the places they live, work, and play. They convene deep dialogue and highlight unexpected voices and diverse perspectives. Jane's Walks also hold space for people to exercise their power as active, engaged members of their community. They dismantle the walls created by distance, difference, and apathy, and they foster civic leadership.
Thank you so much, Jane's Walk Steering Committee, for sharing some context and history. Really excited to be working with this team on this session, because Jane did work in New York, but also did a lot of work in Toronto later in her life, which is really important to keep in mind. So speaking of Jane Jacobs, if you'd like to learn more about her work, you can check out our media guide on the Jane's Walk 2022 website. Jane Jacobs was an advocate for including people's perspectives in planning, and she wrote some incredible works, including The Death and Life of Great American Cities, that remains a canon of urban planning, literature, theory, and practice for people today. Her activism helped save beloved, yeah, there you go, Dee has the book. Her activism, it helped save beloved areas in New York City, including Greenwich Village, and she really motivated New Yorkers to rise up and protest against the Lower Manhattan Expressway that was proposed to be built through that area. And she did countless other things across New York and Toronto, and her work really lives on. So to read her works and read works inspired by her, and also other works about urban issues and exploring the city, you can check out our media guide online. And I'd like to provide a little bit of context on Jane's Walk. As the Jane's Walk Steering Committee members were telling us, it has a pretty long history, starting back in the 2000s, but over the past 2 years, the festival has transformed a bit due to COVID. So in 2020, Jane's Walk NYC, we had to pivot quite quickly with our plans, but we were able to engage over 25,000 people online through our week-long festival, and we used social media to engage people, and it taught us a lot about how we can continue to use virtual tools to share the joy of Jane's Walk with new audiences, including people who are not in New York City. And in 2021, we offered a mixture of in-person self-guided walks and also virtual walks, engaging more than 73,000 people across our different platforms, across social media and on our website. And here are some examples of walks that were led last year virtually. And this year, we are engaging once again in a hybrid festival, but we are bringing back in-person walks for the first time since 2019, which is very exciting. So you can lead an in-person walk with a group. You can lead, you can do a self-guided walk that people can take themselves on demand, or you can also lead a walk on Zoom, on social media, or in your browser. So we have live activities that are scheduled and take place on a certain date during the festival weekend of May 6th through the 8th. So for example, if you have a guided group walk that you scheduled, that is a live activity. And then our on-demand activities offer ways for participants to access content at any time So if you're planning to share a self-guided walk route as your walk, people can access this on demand anytime. So now I'm going to walk through different examples of walk formats that you can engage in this year. And first, I'm going to talk a little bit about in-person walks. I'd like to touch on the safety details that we have for this year's in-person walks. For the time being, we are asking that walk leaders and attendees remain masked during any guided group walks to practice social distancing and to have proof of vaccination on hand just in case. For these walks, we are requiring registration, capping registration at 30 people, and only holding walks outdoors. If things do change and we feel extra safe, these guidelines could change, but for the time being, we are staying true to these guidelines for any in-person walks. Now here is an example of an in-person walk that was put on in 2019. This walk was actually put on virtually last year as well, but it's a great example of a guided group walk that engages in some really exciting topics in a fun way. So this walk explored endangered birds and the effects of climate change on different species, but through a public art walk. So a really nice example of combining two maybe disparate topics in a really engaging way. An example of a self-guided walk is this walk that was done in East Harlem last year, and it was done in collaboration with Urban Archive, which is a really great platform that allows you to create a collection of historic images and stories and mapping different locations in a space so people can take themselves on a walk. So as you can see in this image, these different locations were plotted in this neighborhood, and someone could go on their phone and walk around the neighborhood and explore these different locations throughout the route. Now, if you don't want to engage with an app, you can also make a self-guided walk through a PDF that can be printed or held on someone's phone. This is a great example from the Morris Jamal Mansion Museum in Washington Heights, I believe, and this is from last year's festival. And it's a fun way of just creating a PDF that has different plots, locations, and people can take themselves on a walk at any time. So these are two examples of on-demand self-guided walks. Now, Zoom, we're all familiar with Zoom, and I know we've all experienced, gotten a lot of experience over the past 2 years with how to use Zoom. So if you're doing a Zoom walk, you could host a hangout and foster a dialogue about a topic you're passionate about. You could explore a topic that engages multiple boroughs. A great thing about Zoom is that you can have a walk that really goes beyond barriers. You can explore things across many different boroughs and not have to worry about traveling to all of those locations in one walk. Or you could lead a discussion about an important topic affecting your neighborhood. On the screen is an example of a walk the Morningside Heights Historic District Committee led last year about some proposed historic districts in their neighborhood. So a wonderful example of a Zoom walk. In a similar vein, you can use social media to plan a live walk. This example was a really great walk that was put on last year by the New York City LGBT Sites organization, and the project co-director, Andrew Scott Dolhart, led people around the Greenwich Village neighborhood exploring different sites. And this example is really nice because he had someone holding the camera phone and he was walking. So you could have someone who's holding the camera while you're walking throughout different locations. So love this example. Keep in mind that if you're doing a walk on social media, your profile must be public in order for people to be able to tune in. And some examples of platforms that aren't Instagram, you could also engage in YouTube Live, Facebook, or even TikTok for a virtual live walk. Another example of a social media walk that isn't necessarily live and is more so a social media post. This was created in 2020 by some MAS staff members exploring the 200 Amsterdam which is a site of a history of gerrymandering in this zoning lot. And it was just an informative swipe through. So you could do a social media post like this that is on demand, and walk attendees can explore it whenever. And a similar example, if you don't want to use social media, you can go on your browser and create a website, maybe using WordPress or Squarespace or Tumblr that has different images, different text, maybe interviews with people in your community about a topic that you're passionate about. You could also dabble in using podcast format or something else that's engaging like that. This example was really nice from last year. It's a tour or a walk across Little Manila in Queens, and they used this platform called History Pin to collect different images and text about this location. So now that I've gone through some different platforms that you can use for your walk, I'd like to reiterate that, as I mentioned earlier, over the past 2 years, we've really explored how conversations don't have to be bound to one location or one neighborhood. And you can even have dialogue with Jane's Walk leaders across the world. Jane's Walk is engaged in over 200 cities across the world, all during that weekend in May, which is really, really cool, really exciting. And if you want to lead your walk in a non-English language, we also encourage that. When you submit your walk, you can just select what language your walk will be in. So we encourage inner city dialogue and also dialogue with folks across the world. So maybe you have a friend or someone in your family who is in a different city and you share a similar passion about a certain topic. You can engage in a conversation that goes beyond New York. And I'd like to reiterate that whatever format your walk takes, the Jane's Walk Festival allows you to celebrate your love for the city. Our city, and also Toronto, has shown incredible resilience over the past 2 years, and you can consider engaging a walk that talks about maybe a local nonprofit or mutual aid network that's in your neighborhood, or you can even use your walk as a way to promote a local business. A great idea would be to end your in-person guided walk or self-guided walk at a local coffee shop or bar for a happy hour. And that way you're engaging the local community in a really fun way and also supporting a local business. Right. So that's a lot of information, I know, but if you want to dig deeper into the different walk formats, you can use some of our resources that are available in the chat and also on our Jane's Walk website. So I'd like to highlight our FAQ. The FAQ is pretty similar to last year's FAQ, but with some updated text around COVID and our in-person walks, but a great resource if you have any questions. And then on the right-hand side, you'll see the Jane's Walk Leader Guide, also very similar to last year's guide, but with some updated examples. And this guide not only provides examples of different types of walks, but it also provides great resources for leading a walk online, different platforms outside of just Zoom and social media, ways that you can create a podcast, ways you can edit videos. All sorts of great resources are included in this walk leader guide, which is also available on our website. Now, last year, some walk leaders expressed interest in being able to meet fellow walk leaders through social online, since doing in-person programs like this aren't super possible yet. We are going to keep using Slack as we did last year. So I encourage everyone who's interested to join the Slack. It's a great way to stay up to date about important announcements, but also it would be a great way for you to engage with fellow walk leaders. So maybe you are feeling not super confident with using Zoom, and you'd like to reach out to someone who maybe could help you and guide you in using that platform. Or maybe you have a topic that you are really passionate about, but you'd like to lead a walk with someone else, have a co-walk leader, you could easily put a message in the Slack and find someone who might be interested in co-leading a walk with you. We really love collaboration in that way. I know that leading a walk can be kind of intimidating. So having a co-walk leader is definitely encouraged. When you submit your walk, you can include the name of someone else who will lead the walk with you. And it's also a great way to meet people and foster excitement around a topic that you're passionate about. So you can email the Jane's Walk email if you'd like to join the Slack, and there's also a link in the chat about our Slack. So along with these resources and the Slack, you can also engage more with certain topics around Jane's Walk with some upcoming trainings. So on March 23rd, myself and Spencer Williams, who is our Director of Advocacy, will be leading a Jane's Walk training all about virtual walks. So Zoom, Instagram Live, TikTok, all these different platforms. You can learn more about how to harness those different tools to make a exciting virtual walk. The RSVP link will be in our chat, but also go to our website if you'd like to sign up for this virtual session. And looking to April, we have another session with our Director of Tours, Ted. He'll be leading this session, and it's all about how to lead an in-person walk. So maybe you led in-person walks pre-COVID and you're a bit rusty, or you haven't led an in-person walk before. This will be a great way to get some helpful tips and tricks. Ted is a total pro, so it would be a great session to attend if you're interested in leading an in-person walk. That is on April 6th, and you can also sign up on our website. One more thing before I get into this slide. In April, you can always email the Jane's Walk email if you'd like to dedicate some time to go over your walk, maybe do a test run with a member of the MAS team. We're always happy to provide different input, or if you just want to run through your slides, we offer time for that. So feel free to email us and we can schedule some time to go over your walk. Okay, so now a bit more about how to actually submit your walk. The festival is May 6th through the 8th, and submissions for walks is on March 31st. So you can go to our submission form and submit your walk idea. And in early to mid-April, all of the walks will be available on our website. And once the roster is available, people can start signing up for walks. And we're really excited for you to see our website. It's been revamped since last year, and it'll look really awesome. Once the roster is up, it's time for promotion. In Jane's Walk, our team at MAS, there's a lot of promotion on social media, but we also rely on our partners to promote walks. But we also would really love if different walk leaders could promote their walks and promote just the festival in general on their social media channels. There are some posts up on our Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook currently about submissions. So if you'd like to share those on your platforms, feel free to get some people to submit walks. And then once the roster is up, we'll provide some different design elements, some pictures and graphics that you can share on your social media to promote the festival to people that follow you online. And any questions you might have, maybe a question that you have today that isn't answered, I'd be happy if you could just email us at janeswalknyc@mas.org, and a member of our team would be happy to respond to your email with any questions you might have. And yeah, we really want to make sure that this festival is exciting for you, whether you are a new walk leader or a well-seasoned walk leader. We know that getting back into in-person walks is very exciting, and we are here to help in any way we can. So that was a lot of information, but thank you all for listening. Right now, we are going to be transitioning into some breakout rooms. And while in these breakout rooms, we'll have a little icebreaker question where you can get to know your fellow walk leaders a bit. And then this time will also be dedicated to you asking questions you might have about Jane's Walk, maybe talking about ideas you have and bouncing ideas across, just bouncing ideas around. Or also you can use this time to brainstorm just different ideas you have, but ask any questions you might have as well. If any questions will get answered, feel free to email us at the Jane's Walk email. But in a second, I will create some breakout rooms. And while I am doing that, feel free to look at the chat and make sure you have those helpful links saved for the future trainings happening, the walk leader guide, just so you have those resources at your fingertips. So I'll take a minute to put everyone in breakout rooms, and we'll be in these breakout rooms for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll come back to the main room and we'll do a few more questions and answers, and then we'll say goodbye for the night. So yeah, make sure to check out the chat, and I will put everyone in breakout rooms in a minute. Welcome back, everyone. I'm gonna let everyone filter back in, but in a second we can start. Thought it'd be fun if the different team members from MAS or from the steering committee could share maybe a fun idea or a question that someone in their breakout room had, so that the whole group can learn or get inspired by those different ideas or questions. Wes, could you go first?
Yes, I was placed in a room with some amazing folks, all who have histories of tours or collecting stories in the city of New York. So we really brought back my mission is always to ask kind of like what makes your heart pitter patter, like what interests you. And it could be architecture, it could be cupcakes, it could be the best sandwiches in the bodega down the street, and figuring out how to intertwine those things. So yeah, we just kind of got into the very beginning stages of kind of speaking about those. I wouldn't say that we got too far into discussing too much around that or any questions that came up. But I know Miriam, one of our last folks, didn't have a chance to completely finish, so I've just checked in with her over messages. But I guess I would say, yeah, focusing on our neighborhoods, focusing on areas of change or flux that we've seen during the last few years in New York, and how to like tell those stories, and how to hold on to histories lost or histories that are disappearing via the pandemic, via gentrification, via folks aging, and places not existing anymore. So those would be, I would say, like 3 focuses we focused on in ours. I'm gonna pass it on to, can I pass it on to Spencer?
Sure. I think there are some really great sort of tech challenges around how to make something accessible, like an inside space for a walk using tech tools. So there might be some discomfort coming into a space and being able to use sort of live streaming to welcome more people into a space that might otherwise not feel comfortable for folks, or may have some access issues, that some of those digital tools can really expand the conversation. And so that, I think, got my brain rolling on some interesting places and little spots in my neighborhood that I think would be difficult to bring a group of people to, but would be really wonderful places to tell some really complex stories about the city. And so I'm, looking forward to seeing the sort of full, robust offerings on the digital space, because there's so many new tools that are that have emerged since even last year. I think there's a lot more possibilities for having interesting conversations. I think I'm going to pass it to maybe Geraldine.
Could I just give one tech tip? If you're doing a lot of live streaming, we've got a great opportunity with the rise of 5G now. It makes live streaming a whole lot better. And there's actually a few people, both in New York and in Toronto, that are streaming walks every day as they travel. And with the 5G technology, so that's my one tech tip. If you've got 5G, use it.
Amazing. Thanks, Adam. Yeah, we had some very experienced hands and some that have just done one walk perhaps in the last year or so. So we had a good mix of experience and newer folks in our group. One offering to somebody, Jackie, who's done an online lecture for a long time. She's going to take her walk in person for the first time in the meatpacking district. And she did have a question. There was many questions for you guys, so I couldn't answer from a Toronto perspective, just about, whether it's possible to have more than one walk on the same subject matter, and that sort of thing. And so we talked a bit there too, because she's used to doing it as a lecture, to make sure that we open it up to additional conversation during the session, to prompt discussion and that sort of thing. And also to do a walk around. This applied to one of the other folks there who was interested in bringing back a walk she did some years ago, to walk around and to replot your walk, or plot it for the first time. Make sure you get familiar with where you're going to go and how much time that's going to take, and so on. So just a few classic Jane's Walks tips there, but I'm sure they'll follow up with you guys in person too, with some direct questions about the New York situation. All right, I can hand it over to, where do we go? Gia.
Thanks, G. Genevieve, let me know if you're going over time or something. But so we had some good discussions. We had Taylor and Nate and Adam and me in a group. We talked about if, like repeating a walk that has been done in the past, if that's okay. And we concluded that repetition is okay, because first you get a different crowd, and then it is important for these topics or maybe these walks to keep repeating, so that it's on top of people's minds. And then we talked about if the area is far from transit, will that restrict people from attending the walk, from going to the walk? But then maybe that's a good opportunity to include a virtual component to the walk, so that more people can attend if they can't come physically to the place. But maybe that's also an opportunity. It's a call to action that there should be more transit in these areas. That can also be part of the walk. And then we also had this interesting discussion around: do you want to tell about your favorite places to people, and then will more people come to those areas, and then will they lose the charm? So yeah, those are some of the things that we discussed. And I will pass it to Celia.
Sure, thanks. I'll go quickly because I know we're running tight on time, but really interesting to hear what the other groups talked about. Also, diversity of experiences and familiarity with Jane's Walks and hosting walks of any kind in our group. I would say some common questions were around like the length of walks and the time of day, which I mean, we talked about like 2 hours is already a lot, but tends to be kind of the going time frame. And I think the most interesting discussion was that we had was around kind of the flow of walks and different ways to make them more interactive. So how can you kind of make them more of a discussion, more of a conversation than just your typical, I'm leading a walk on this thing, let me talk and go from stop to stop to stop. So we talked about some interesting tactics from that or for that, and a lot of folks had different experiences themselves going on some fun walks. So yeah, those were some great discussions, and I will pass it on to Cecilia.
Thank you. Yeah, we had some really nice discussion about everybody's walk ideas. I think all of their ideas are really good, so I hope everybody follows through with it. There's a bit of discussion about the transition this year, maybe in the past, they've done online events. How do we make this in-person event a success? And some questions about COVID considerations to integrate into their planning. Yeah, it was a really nice discussion. Maybe I can pass it on to Adam.
Well, we had the same thing, but we also one of the people was like, how do I do a walk when it's further from public transit? And stuff, and my suggestion was, I'd say do definitely the in-person, but have like a virtual version or another document version, and it can also be used for advocacy to show that it is an in park, and maybe there does need to be more transit options to the area. So that's and I was also with Chia and stuff, and we have the same problems in Toronto with neighborhoods that don't get love because they're out in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. Thank you.
I do want to note from Adam, that's such great advice just on like, if you are doing an in-person walk. I think one thing we've learned on the steering committee is that, you know, through the last 2 years, through being able to do the virtual walks, accessibility wise, having some sort of aspect of it that people can still do at home or on their own. So whether it be a PDF, whether it be some piece of something that you're handing to it. The other one last point I wanted to say, I know I've already spoken, so I'm going to be very quickly, is just always remembering that it should never be like a one-sided conversation, that or a one-sided piece. It should always be a conversation. So Jane's Walk, just to remind everyone that it should always have a aspect where you're asking and people are, you know, there should be some back and forth.
That's great. That's great. I think there's a question in the chat for Celia, but maybe Celia, feel free to respond in the chat to that question. Thank you everyone for sharing. I'm glad there was such great conversation that was fostered during those breakout sessions. I know it's hard to recreate what a kickoff event would be like in person, but I'm glad that we had that space to answer some questions. There's a final little poll that just popped up, so feel free to answer. One of the best parts of Jane's Walk is that it's like right at the end of spring, beginning of summer. It's a great way to get excited about being outdoors. So feel free to answer that poll. And yeah, this concludes the end of the kickoff and info session. A huge thank you to the Jane's Walk Steering Committee for their contributions tonight and their assistance with planning this program. Also a huge thank you to Spencer and Dee and Eliza and Elizabeth from MAS for all of your hard work. And thank you everyone who came as a prospective walk leader. We are really excited for this hybrid festival. And if you have any questions, once again, feel free to email us or attend our future training sessions. But we can't wait to have you all engaged in this year's festival. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Of course. And once again, a recording of this will be available online. So feel free to rewatch it or share with people. But have a wonderful night. And I hope to see many of you at Jane's Walk in May.